everyone, welcome back to Cloud Kitten Chronicles. I'm Joshua, and today we are going to be talking about self-publishing, creating a publishing company, and everything in between. This was a video recommended by one of our kittens in the Kitten Coalition, our Patreon. You can check that out over here from one of our patrons, Courtney Levet. Courtney wanted to know a little bit more about a publishing company, Cloud Kitten Publishing, what it took to get off the ground, why we started one in the first place, and if it made sense for authors to even start a publishing company or to just publish their book themselves. When you're finished writing a book, this can actually be a really confusing thing to try to figure out how to do because everybody has different opinions. So I thought it would be a good idea to lay down some information that we found out and give you our reason for starting a publishing company and why you might not necessarily want to do that. Now, before I start talking about all of that stuff, I want to say I'm not a lawyer. If you want to get actual lawyer advice, you should go and pay for an actual lawyer. All the laws and regulations and stuff that I'm going to be talking about are specific to the US. And to start off by saying that a publishing company is a business. It's not just something that you write down on a piece of paper saying, hey, I'm a publishing company now. There's a lot of regulation and paperwork and legalese stuff that you're gonna have to worry about if you start a publishing company. Make sure that even after you listen to this video that you actually sit down and put a lot of thought into whether you want to get into that whole mess. Cloud Kitten Publishing specifically is a DBA, or doing business as. It's a name that our actual LLC is legally allowed to use. So our actual LLC name is Eclectic Wolf LLC. We decided to do that in the beginning because we wanted to make sure that we structured our company such that if we decided to do anything else in the future, that we wouldn't have to reset up an entire company. We could just use the one that we already had. Eclectic Wolf LLC is registered under the US government, stationed in the state of California. So I think when you actually finished your book and you've decided that you actually want to go out and throw it out into the world, you kind of have three options. Your first one is that you publish the book as yourself, the author. You don't have any type of company, it's just you. The second option is that you go out and you query actual publishers. You submit them your manuscript, they review it, and they're like, yeah, we really like this. Here's a contract, sign it, sign your book away, and we will publish it for you and handle everything that's involved with it. And then the third option is I want to create my own publishing company. I want to actually run myself like a business. Maybe I want to possibly branch out in the future to publish other people's work, and I want it to be more formal. So why would you want to choose each of these individual options? Let's start out with just publishing it yourself. No publishing company, no anything, just by yourself. I think realistically, this is probably the easiest option, and it's the one that's going to give you a lot more freedom as an author. The benefit on this side is that you completely own your work, you can publish it, you can change it however you want to. It's going to require the least amount of paperwork because all of the monetary related things and paying taxes, that's just your personal account. You're making an income and you got to pay taxes on it like you're making income as an individual. However, the downside is that you basically have no legal protections. If somebody were to come out and sue you, you would be personally responsible for paying that if you lose the lawsuit. What that means is that if for whatever reason you get sued for like $1 million, literally everything that you personally own will have to be sold or given away in order to make back this amount, and you will personally have to pay back this entire amount. Maybe somebody is looking at the cover of your book and they're like, hey, that image that's on that book is copyrighted. I own that copyright. I should sue them for damages. So if you own a publishing company, they're not going to be suing you as an individual, they're going to be suing the company. And so what that means, if you eventually lose the lawsuit for whatever reason, all of that money will be taken away from the business. All of your personal assets will be perfectly fine, but anything that the business owns, any type of materials or money in the bank accounts, those will be the things up for grabs. And so this is a way to possibly lose some of your money, but not lose your entire livelihood. But this isn't necessarily perfect. The courts could decide that you are personally responsible for making the decision that caused whatever thing to happen that you're being sued for. So while the LLC can provide a number of protections, it's not perfect. Usually depends on the states, but in general, LLCs are very, very strong for personal protection. So you're like, hey, great, this is great. I can set up a business, I'm protected, I don't have to worry about anything. Well, yeah, but it's a lot of work and it costs a lot of money to actually set this up and maintain it as a business. Like I mentioned, this is a business. You're running a literal business that is registered with the government, and you need to do everything that goes along with that. The first thing you're gonna need to do is even set up that LLC. I'd say that for us specifically, setting up that LLC was probably one of the most expensive parts of running our business. So the initial cost that we actually had to put down to set up this business was $5,000. This isn't what we paid, it was the deposit that we had to put down to actually say, this is an amount of money that we have as an organization to start with to spend. So the actual cost of the lawyers to set up the LLC, they charged $2,700 to completely set up our business, file our DBAs, and basically fill out all of the paperwork. And then at the end of it, once everything was set up, they gave us this beautiful binder here, and this binder has literally all the paperwork related to our company that we would ever need. It has our bylaws, our operating agreement, how the ownership of the company is set up between Megan and I, how taxes should be filed. Now, $2,700, it's a lot, but I feel that when you're setting up this type of organization, you're gonna want to hire somebody that you know has very real experience working with it. You can always go to a company like LegalZoom or something like that, but I really would not recommend it for doing something as large as setting up an organization. You're gonna wanna create a one-on-one relationship with a lawyer because you're gonna need to go back to them at some point to do some other work. For example, when Megan and I moved apartments, we need to go and ask them, hey, what documents did we need to sign? Do we need to notify? And they're able to do all of it. However, it was very expensive to also do that because then that was a lot more work that they had to do. And then not even including the lawyer fees, you need to pay for a ton of stuff just to upkeep the business. California has a law where every company, no matter how much money they make, needs to pay a minimum of $800 a year. That doesn't matter how much money you made, even if you were operating at a net negative and you barely made anything that year, you at least have to pay California $800. We need to pay for a registered agent, which is a person that basically just sits in an office somewhere that the government can send mail to make sure that we get legal notices. And then we have to have a ton of software to just track how our business is running. So for example, a QuickBooks membership, and that's to sync up to our bank accounts and track every individual thing that we have to spend, and then attach receipts to it, because as a business you need to keep your receipts for literally everything that you buy. And then all the software that you would normally need to buy to actually run our business. So like the Adobe suite for like Photoshop and After Effects, ISBNs for our books. There are just so many costs that go into running a business that you don't initially think about. So how about we take a look at what we've actually spent on our business. I want to show you guys this so that you guys understand exactly how much money it takes, and along with how much money we've made, and you can make the decision as to whether you think it's a good idea and want to spend that money. So here we go. This is the screenshot right here of my QuickBooks account of every expense that we've made since we've created the company. As you can see, we spent about $1,500 on advertising, which didn't work out quite as well as we hoped to, but we learned a lot of things. We've spent about $800 on software over the past year, and that's between Google, Amazon services, Shopify, Adobe products. That's literally everything that we needed to run our business, make video content, make publishing content, literally all of that stuff. We have some fees in there that we had for keeping servers for our personal websites and our business website, the Cloud Kitten Publishing logo, and then the design of Aletheia is in there as well, and that was over $1,000. Then our editing costs for Aletheia was about $1,800. We spent about $1,200 on actual products, so that's the physical books that we bought to sell to other people, and we did that by going to, we do that on our website. Check out our website down below and buy Aletheia. And also that's included in products that we just gave away for free, either through giveaways or for friends and family or for gifts or anything like that. You also pay some money to ship to people, have to pay some fees to Square whenever you make a sale. So here we go, we have our taxes. So as I mentioned, we have to pay a minimum of $800 a year to California, so we've had to pay that twice now since it's almost been 2 years. We included travel in there to a convention, I think it was BookNet Fest. And so here you are, you can see our wonderful operating income of negative $13,000. Now, a lot of money. That's because it takes a lot of money to run a business like this. So now let's take a look at the money that we've actually... Now I'm not showing this for you guys to be like, oh no, they're so negative. It's because I want you guys to understand how expensive it takes to run a company like this. Aletheia has sold very, very well for a single published book from an author that nobody had heard of before Megan had published anything, before she even really had a social media following. I think we're personally doing great, and this is something that I look at, and it's a really great drive forward to say, okay, this is what we have to work towards. A lot of people think, oh, those authors always trying to push to make more money and become rich, and it's not really about becoming rich. A lot of times authors need those sales just to make back the cost of actually publishing a product. Now it would be great if eventually, after a number of years, and maybe once Megan releases a book or two more, that we actually start becoming more positive. But this is something that just needs to happen. When you're running a company, you're gonna be negative for a while until you start getting your company on the ground. So as you can see, we've made about $300 from Amazon. We've sold about $300 worth from Lightning Source directly. So far we've made about $150 on Patreon, about $200 from PayPal from selling our product, Shopify from selling through our online store, and the income that we made at BookNet Fest by selling our book directly to people at the convention. So if you're taking a look at that and being like, wow, I don't know if I can spend that amount of money, or if having that personal protection is really worth that amount of money in the beginning, that makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that. If you want to take on the personal risk, you're like, it's gonna be fine. I don't really think that many people are gonna be reading it. I know that the stuff that I've put in the book is not copyrighted anyway. I think more than likely you're gonna be fine. Once you start making thousands and thousands of dollars from your book, then might be the time to think, okay, maybe I should go and get published, or I should make a publishing company for those legal protections. But if you're just starting out, I think you're gonna be fine just selling the book as an individual author. You're gonna have a little bit of issue probably with name recognition, because people are gonna say, oh, this wasn't published by a publishing company. But I think even owning our publishing company, nobody had ever heard of Cloud Kitten Publishing before, so that it was kind of like the same thing where, yeah, it's owned by a company, but that doesn't really mean anything because it's not a company that I've heard of before. But if you're like, hey, I really want that name recognition of a publishing company that's really good, or yeah, I think it's really important to have those legal protections, go out, find a publishing company. You're gonna have the negative that a publishing company is going to be very picky. It's gonna be a lot of work to go out and query all of those different publishing companies before someone finally chooses you. And when they eventually choose you, you might end up losing some control over your creative freedom. But if that safety net and that marketing ability is really important to you, yeah, go ahead and do that. Like, none of these options are better than the other one. They're all just different options for different things that people care about. You're gonna wanna pick the thing that has the best risk-reward ratio for you specifically, and don't let anybody shame you otherwise. There is one last option that you can possibly choose. You can go and find a hybrid publishing company. Now, these hybrid publishing companies, you're gonna have to do your research because they're given a lot of shit a lot of times, because there are vanity publishers, which you're basically just paying for work, and in which case you probably should just publish it yourself. Or there are actual hybrid publishers that provide a service that I think is a good mix between having a traditional publishing company protecting your work and paying all those upfront costs, and you needing to actually go out and start a company and pay that $10,000 to actually run your business. More than likely, the way that it's gonna work is you're gonna go and find a hybrid company that you like. You're probably gonna end up paying them some money, especially if they're not a big publisher. They might not be able to front literally all of the costs of publishing your book. And so they're usually gonna ask for an amount, and usually that's to cover cover design and editing specifically, but then you don't have to worry about literally any of those other costs. They handle literally everything else. And usually they're gonna take that money, pay for some things, pay for a number of services out of their own pocket, and then you're going to get an actual publishing experience, having to have spent some of your own money but not having to lay down all of it in order to actually get that benefit of having a pretty much professionally published book. Hybrid publishers are gonna have a little bit less name recognition, but if you're going for a hybrid publisher, you're probably not gonna be going for name recognition. And more than likely, you're probably gonna be able to retain some of your creative freedom instead of going to a normal publishing company and them telling you what exactly needs to change for them to publish your book. And then in regards to legal protection, more than likely they're going to act as the publisher, and so you don't have to worry about those legal protections. Just make sure that when you eventually read the contract that they put in front of you, they are taking on the risk of all these things. Because if you're paying them otherwise, you're probably better off just paying for those individual services. So there you go, everyone. That is my insight anyway into whether you should self-publish a book, whether you should create a publishing company, go to an actual publishing company. As you saw, they each have their individual benefits and trade-offs, and I think that you're gonna need to make a choice as an individual what you think is best for you and your book. None of these options are objectively better than one or the other. It's just a matter of what you think is gonna be best for you. Don't let anybody shame you otherwise. It's your work, and obviously you're gonna wanna do the thing that's gonna benefit your work the best. As I said, I'm not a lawyer. Do your own research, go talk to a lawyer. A lot of times you can go to them for free, and they'll be able to tell you what they think you should do and how much it's going to cost. Again, thank you, Courtney Levet, for recommending this topic. I think it's very important. If you guys have any similar types of questions or questions about publishing in general, leave us a comment down below what you want to see us make a video about. Go become a patron. Go become a kitten in the Kitten Coalition at our Patreon. We have a ton of beautiful, wonderful benefits that you get between extra video content like bloopers and vlogs. You can even get some critiques by me, and I'm pretty harsh, so your book will come out amazing. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, leave us a like. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If you've already subscribed, ring that bell so you can be notified whenever new videos like this are released. We release 3 times a week. And yeah, go check out our Patreon. We love you guys, and we'll see you in the next video.